Hey, leaders, welcome into the Leadership Sandbox. I am super excited that today we are celebrating that we have made it to our 100th episode. This podcast started as a heartbeat of mine, an idea of mine, and sort of a sandbox experiment, if I'm being totally real with you. It was really about how do we tackle in a broader sense the messy things that leaders are dealing with at work in their own personal sandbox. And today I'm celebrating that we've made it to 100 episodes. And here's the cool fact. We're like less than 7% of all podcasters out there ever make it this far. And the number goes down the further along this process that we go. And really what's kept us going isn't the hope that we would have impact. It's the knowing that we are here to make a difference, to make an impact in the lives of leaders and in the team environment. So how do we do that? We do that one episode a week at a time. And we're so excited that you're joining us today for this 100th episode in the Sandbox. And we're talking all about those lies that leaders believe. And we're continuing on with our series. And here's what today's all about. Hope is not a strategy. It's why great leaders stop wishing and start leading. That's what we're tackling in the Sandbox. Thanks for joining us for this great 100th episode. I'll see you on the inside in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. All right. Thank you again for joining me in the Sandbox. We are busting through the biggest lies in this series out there that leaders have been telling themselves. And here's one of them. Hope is a strategy. Spoiler alert, it's not. It's actually one of the fallacies that people get caught up in the most. And by the end of today's episode, you're going to know exactly why hope keeps teams stuck and what you can do instead to lead with clarity and action and purposeful, intentional planning to get out of what has you stuck. Now, hope in and of itself, I have hope in many things. From a faith perspective, I have hope in a greater good. And in a world today, that hope is part of what's continuing to keep me moving forward. However, I also know that when it comes to leading teams and people and having those difficult and bold conversations, hope is not the strategy. And it is something that leaders get caught up in. It's that lie of if we just keep working hard, things will get better. Well, the reality is if you don't define the problem, nothing's going to get better. Many leaders think that optimism and effort will somehow magically fix dysfunction. No, identifying, naming it, and claiming what the dysfunction and the issue is the only thing to help you through that. And that usually means you've got to have a bold conversation in the process. Instead of using language like, I hope my team figures it out. I heard this one recently. I hope this new hire is going to solve the issues that we have in that department because they really need help. And I'm like, hope. That's not your strategy. Your strategy is to let them know that you're the new hire, as well as the whole team, what your expectation is. That's your responsibility. See, the danger of hope as a leadership tool, it creates passivity instead of personal ownership and accountability. And it sets your team up for repeated disappointments because they're waiting for you to put something in their sandbox that helps them get that clarity and expectation that you have for them instead of hoping. I had no less than 4 conversations last week with leaders that are hoping for a change in behavior from a staff member, a team member, and hoping that a new hire was going to make the difference in this dysfunctional team, all of which I got to burst their bubble and shatter that dream and that hope to say, no, friends, that's not going to work. The responsibility is on you. And here's how we get that, because you build a culture of reaction, not intention, when you stay stuck in hope as a leadership tool, that hope, that wishing, right? You're setting people up for disappointment and failure. You're creating passivity and no ownership, and you're building that culture of reaction. And if you want that to stop, then the change starts with you. See, according to Harvard Business Review, teams without clear strategies are 3 times more likely to fail at hitting their objectives, even when morale is high, even when we like each other, even when we all get along. Think about that for a minute. 3 times more likely to fail. Can you keep sustaining failure. I was talking with one leader this week at the end of the week, someone who I've known for a really long time, and they needed to make a really difficult business decision. It was hard for them. And you could see the emotion because it was tied to a very personal situation. The reality is the difficult decision they knew was actually already made probably 2 years ago, but they held out hope that something would change. And the truth of the matter is they learned in a very difficult way and a very financially expensive way that that hope is not a strategy. And what they also understood by the end of our conversation is that they just needed to pull the Band-Aid off earlier and they didn't. And it cost them a lot. And now we're in the preservation mode. Now we're in that how do we save and really make sure that the relationships are still intact. And that's going to be a real tough one. It's going to take some healing because they got caught up in that hope as a strategy. Because here's where hope hides out, friends. This is where leaders, probably even unknowingly, you might be relying on hope in your hiring process, believing that if we hire this rock star, they're going to fix the problems, the culture, the issues that we have. And the reality is they just inherit the mess and then they need to bring a bigger shovel. And the real reality is when you hire for that and you don't set up the clarity of what's needed to fix the problem before they even get in here or come alongside of them to help fix the problem you created, you're going to push that rock star hire out the door quicker. I'm already hearing rumblings from one new hire that's been with an organization for just a very short period of time. And they're already questioning. They like the people, they like the mission, they like the organization. But what they don't like is the lack of leadership at the top to have the difficult, challenging decision making conversations to change the work flow and the process and the outcomes for the rest of everybody else. They see the writing on the wall already, and they're not that long into the job. So that great rock star hire, you could be pushing out quickly because you haven't addressed the problems. Our hope that with when it comes to like our performance issues, we avoid having hard conversations, hoping that behaviors will self-correct. Or if we put the right positive person in there, the behaviors are going to correct because we have the right positive person in there. And they're going to make all the difference in the world. And no, that's not the case because the culture's already running down a pathway that's so hard to course correct unless it starts at the top and we have consistent cadence of conversations and we set the clarity of the vision of if not this, then what, and how do we get there? Number 3, where hope hides, is in your strategic planning. It's in your planning, if at all, especially if you don't do it, I guess. Setting goals without clear accountability, thinking alignment will just happen is not going to work, friends. So you got to get that accountability, the clarity of the expectations of what the outcome looks like. And it's up to you to cast that vision and get so crystal clear on it that everybody understands their part, their piece in it, and how that winning looks. Like, what does winning look like at this? So that we're not just hoping something's going to happen and alignment's going to happen and outcomes are going to be positive. We're actually setting everybody up to succeed because the reality is hope hides out in our planning process without clear accountability loops. The 4th place is how we navigate conflict. Hope hides out when we all think we just need to play nice. Be nice instead of creating ground rules and agreements so that when we're in a meeting or when we're having an issue, we can point back to the same list on the wall to go, hold on a minute, time out. We have an agreement that, and then you list it out. Number 5 on that list says we're going to speak with respect. Number 6 on that list says that you're going to honor the by when agreements of our timelines, or you're going to come to me. I don't need to chase you. You get to have that list of agreements and it can be co-created with the team. That's fine. How we navigate conflict is important. It's not about playing nice. It's about having an agreement that we get to have healthy dialogue in a safe manner. Everybody is respected. We're going to get to consensus and we're going to finalize it and move forward. But we have an agreement for engagement, an agreement with boundaries and ground rules of how we work and play together in that sandbox. Because hoping that people are just going to play nice, clearly, turn on the news, friends. People don't play nice these days. They're very confused on what boundaries and playing nice and respect looks like. So it's up to you in your workplace to create that with your team so everybody understands what's expected in our behaviors. That is not about hope. That's building a strategy. That's the important piece there. Everybody has those characters in the sandbox that I talk about. And they're all kind of destructive in their own, not kind of, they all can be very destructive in their own way. You can have a gossip Glenn, you can have a negative Nelly, and they might be running the show behind the scenes. And you're hoping isn't going to fix nothing. It's not going to fix them. Your clear leadership that shuts down those behaviors. Hey, Nellie, I see this. You like to come into the meetings where you're a bit doom and gloom. Have you noticed this before? Like, I want to speak boldly with Nellie, and I'm going to invite that conversation. Now, I have a little bit more freedom than sometimes you do, depending on how your HR operates. But as a consultant, I get to call out those behaviors. Wow, is that how you show up to meetings? I'm just curious. I actually did it to someone the other day, unintentionally, but that's me being bold. They were packing up everything, getting ready to leave the meeting. They thought that we were done, and we still had a good 20 minutes left on the agenda to cover before we were complete. And this individual is like packing up, and they're like sitting there, everything's in their arms. I'm like, so are you wanting to leave early? No, I'm just waiting for it to be done. Okay, well, get comfortable because we have like 20 more minutes. We got to get through all these things unless the team decides we don't want to finish those. No, we need to finish them. The team kind of like started laughing, but erupting all at the same time. Now, as a leader, you maybe can't say that to Joe, Susie, or Sally, or your gossip Glenn, or your negative Nellie, or your Nick the Castle Kicker. But what you can do is actually frame it up, and going back to the ground rules that you have. You can point to it on the wall, but you can also pull them aside and say, hey, the next time, here's what I expect. That's what clear leadership is. Clear leadership changes the behaviors of those characters that are running rampant in your sandbox that are not helping you build toward the future, but keeping you stuck in the past. Right? Get clear. So here's what we do instead. It's not about being hopeless, leader, but I'm going to give you a toolkit because I like those. 3 practical steps, 3 easy steps. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. 1, you're going to get clear on the outcome that you want. You're going to define the result you actually want. And when I say define it, leader, I mean you can actually picture in your mind. You have the visual in your mind of what you actually want so that you can then share it with your team and cast a compelling vision. And they are hopeful because you've given them the clarity for the outcome and they can see themselves in it. They understand what you expect from them. That is what's going to set your team up for success. Get your team hopeful because you've been clear on what the outcome is. That's the action item you give them. Create hope in others, not having hope as a strategy for you. Create the practical steps, the clarity of the what, by who, and by when. The what, by who, and by when. Because the reality is, when we can explain what's happening, how we want it, who owns it, and what we expect moving forward, that gives your team the right tools to operate with. And that's what they want and need. Number 2, you want to build accountability ladders. So this looks a little bit like this. Stop delegating the tasks, but speak to the outcomes. A lot of times we'll just get to the task. Move this from here to there. That's a task. Why? Right? Now I'm going to talk about the outcome by moving object A from spot C to spot F, right? I can see what I'm skipping in the process and I'm delegating the outcome that I want to who. Each role needs to have a clear metric, clear KPIs. If those freak you out, just give them clear to-dos. One owner with a clear outcome, right? One clear outcome, one clear owner. You're setting people up for success because the reality is if everyone owns it, no one owns it. It's very easy for us to point fingers in the opposite direction, right? So build accountability ladders. So who owns it? By when do you want it? And what's that outcome? And everything gets measured against that. You will find your meetings will get more efficient. Your timelines will be more efficient. And I was going to share this story too. I'm going to do it. So I was working several years ago now with a certain leader who was one of my favorites. I mean, I love all my clients. I'm very blessed, but one of them was really my favorite. but don't tell everyone, right? But this one was really, truly one of my favorites. But what I noticed real quick and in a hurry is because they didn't like conflict, they didn't build in accountability ladders. They didn't want to. They just thought that if I can give I'm hiring really smart people and I'm paying them really good money. So if I just tell them, go do your job, they're going to figure it out because that's what I'm hiring them for. So we weren't delegating outcomes. They weren't wanting to actually even work together as a leadership team, which was crazy to me, that there was no meetings because this person didn't like conflict so much. They didn't even want to meet with their people. They just expected their people in the organization. And I'm talking C-level, right? So I'm talking executives to just have their own meetings and figure it out based on the financial goals that they were given for the organization, for their jobs at different layers. And then they were supposed to report out. Well, this leader would get very frustrated because people weren't producing at the level they want, but they never actually cast the vision. They didn't delegate the outcomes. They didn't have accountability ladders. And so everybody was working in everybody else's sandbox instead of being really clear and concise with what their goals were, who owned it, and by when it was to be done. And we talked about it. Because again, if everyone owns it, no one owns it. And it became really murky. And so it really took quite a big shakeup to get some change there. That leader ended up self-selecting into a different opportunity because they realized that wasn't the level of running an organization that they liked. And that's okay, because the organization is actually better for it. The casualty was at the top, and it actually helped move everybody through in a better way to better results after they were gone. But you got to be willing to address the conflict. And if you're not, then leadership might not be for you. All right, number three, coming back to those toolkit items. You just got 3 of them, right? First one, get clear on the outcome, build accountability ladders. Number 2. Number 3 is create your sandbox rules. Establish those boundaries and agreements so that the team knows what winning looks like. That's it. It's simple. Establish them. Because if we're throwing sand at each other, and if we're stealing each other's shovels, is that actually helping us move forward? Right? Is that actually helping us to achieve the results that we want? That's why we want to actually have rules of engagement in the sandbox. It's how we navigate challenge, how we get into consensus, how we navigate conflict. It's how we win and succeed. What do those actually look like? What are the markers for that? So important. It's up to you to set it. So when you do that, the ideal is at the outcome that you've gotten out of hope being a strategy and actually putting strategy in place so that people are hopeful for a better outcome moving forward to get to the things that you want. If I would have stuck with the hope being a strategy, even on this podcast, I wouldn't be in the small percentage of people that made it to 100 episodes. And I know there are 14,000. I don't know. There's so many in this space alone, in the leadership space. It's a huge number of podcasts that are out there in the airwaves, but most people quit because it wasn't as fun. Like they had hope it was going to take off, but they didn't have a strategy for it. And mine is just be consistent. Right? From my very first episode to having amazing guests on, I'm super grateful that I had people like Dan Pink come on. Like that was just such a gift and a blessing. I've had people that I've gotten to know through my career and through my travels come on the show. And as you know, I'm not one that has a ton of guests because I like to just give you those quick in a hurry and fast episodes because I want you to know that you have the ability to lead successfully and efficiently in whatever way you want. Hope is not the strategy. Leadership is about the clarity, ownership, and action that you bring to it as the leader. And I want to challenge you that this week, as we're celebrating 100 episodes here, I want to challenge you to identify one area, not 100, just one area where you've been hoping instead of leading, and decide to take one bold step to fix it. I also want you to subscribe, share, and leave a review to celebrate our 100 episodes. I would love for you to share how we've impacted you. One key takeaway, send it to me, post it on Instagram, post it on LinkedIn, tag me in it. I'd love to share and celebrate that with you. Hope is a beautiful feeling, but friends, it's not a great strategy. And remember that if everyone owns it, no one owns it. Clarity beats chaos every single time. I want to thank you so much for joining me in the Sandbox today. Thank you for taking a moment to share and subscribe and comment on this episode. Celebrate our 100th with us, because we're not stopping here. We got a long ways to go. This is just the beginning of building leaders who lead boldly, who speak the truth, and who want to transform their teams in the Sandbox. Thanks for joining me. Make it a great day, and God bless.